Good morning, everybody, and thank you, Wallace. My name is Maeve Whyte. I'm a 2014 Nuffield Scholar. The title of my project is Eat Your Sprouts, Tackling the Food Waste Issue. And I'd like to, from the offset, thank my sponsor, the John Oldacre Foundation, for giving me this wonderful opportunity. So, why food waste? First and most importantly, I grew up in a house where everything on your plate had to be finished before you left the table. I therefore knew it was a project that would make my mother and father proud. Secondly, for the past 10 years, I have been working for the UK Farmers' Unions in Brussels. Over the past number of years, food waste has become a hot topic. It didn't matter whether I was in meetings on the Common Agricultural Policy, environmental legislation, or food standards. Everybody was talking about food waste. That is the reason, therefore, that I wanted to investigate the topic further. But let's look at the scale of the problem. If the land area used to produce food that is later wasted is combined globally, it amounts to 1.4 billion hectares. This is the same size as China or Canada. Figures from the UN also indicate that 45% of all fruit and vegetables produced globally in 2012 was wasted. And this is where I want to focus my project, on the fruit and veg sector. Now, given the scale of the problem, inevitably people respond, and they respond from all walks of life. There are some activists in the UK, Tristram Stewart, some of you may know the name, who've been very active on this topic over a number of years, running events to highlight the food waste in our food chains to the public, to the policymakers and others. Many of you will also have seen projects recently by Hugh Fearnley-Whittingstall, for example, or other celebrity chefs on reducing food waste and the importance of food. But it's difficult at the moment to look at the press and not hear about food waste. In this picture here is a picture of National Geographic from March this year. So they led on a story about food waste with a feature of about 15 to 16 pages on the problems, the solutions, and the potential barriers to finding those solutions. Given the work that I have been doing in Brussels over the past number of years, one thing I have learned: where farmers are not involved early in an issue and where they are not proactive in addressing problems, solutions are often found for them by others further up the chain who do not necessarily understand our industry. I therefore, in this report, want to investigate food waste on farm and look at why it happens, what barriers are in place to stop it, and also, most importantly, look at inspiring solutions. And it's some of those inspiring solutions that I wanted to share with you today. So, one of the amazing trips that I did on my Nuffield Scholarship was to New Jersey, to an organisation called Farmers Against Hunger. This is an organisation that is owned, run, and initiated by farmers. It grew out of the New Jersey Agricultural Society, and without exception, all of those farmers that I spoke to were involved with Farmers Against Hunger as a means of dealing with social problems. Despite the fact that New Jersey has wonderful farming and wonderful farmers, it has huge areas of poverty, urban poverty, on its doorstep, and Farmers Against Hunger wanted to respond to this. So how do they work? In a nutshell, a farmer who has more produce than they can sell on their farm, or has had a bumper harvest, or because prices are low, has food on their farm that would otherwise be wasted, they contact Farmers Against Hunger, who come along in their very highly labelled trucks, pick up the food and deliver it to needy causes, such as food pantries, food banks, and soup kitchens. They also rely on a team of 1,200 volunteers to go onto the farms and harvest the crops. And these volunteers are absolutely vital. They consist of school groups, commercial groups, and they involve society in understanding how food is produced and reducing the food waste issue. These gleaning programs, as they're called, have been vital for the industry in New Jersey and for the image of the industry in New Jersey. I was lucky enough to visit one of the charities that Farmers Against Hunger supplies. It is called the Cathedral Kitchen, and it's in Camden. Camden was designated as a promise zone by Obama because of the extent of the poverty in the area. And the Cathedral Kitchen feeds 350 people 6 nights a week. And the important thing is not that they feed them, but they feed them in a nutritious manner. And the supply of fruit and vegetables from Farmers Against Hunger is vital to achieve this. The second example that I wanted to share with you is one that is completely different. It's the Waste Taste project in Denmark. This is a high-tech project that came about because of the result of a simple accident. A frustrated researcher doing his research on chocolate flavors decided to put some of the fruit and vegetables on his desk into a vacuum dryer. And the result was this picture that you see in front of you. Basically, the vacuum drying sucked the water out of the fruit and vegetables and left these stunning crystals and powders that have very intense colours and massively intense flavours. And he realised that he had stumbled on something important, particularly when at the time in Denmark, food waste was high up the political agenda. So in partnership with the Nordic Local Food Group and the farmers that they represent, they decided that they would optimise this project and use an already existing food supply, i.e. food that would otherwise be wasted. So together, they're looking at vacuum drying more products. And they've had interest from restaurants, for example, because these products have very intense flavours, so can be used in meals, but also because they're beautiful. They can be used as decoration. But also from sports industries. These products are easy to transport, and all you have to do is add water, and suddenly you have a nutritious kick in place of a sports drink. But the interesting thing about this project is they have farmers completely involved with it. Over the next few years, they're hoping to look at having mobile vacuum dryers that circulate in areas where there might be food waste at bumper harvest times so that farmers can do the drying themselves and avail of the local market and improve their bottom line. The next example is completely different. Some of you may have heard of Blue Hill Restaurant or its executive chef, Dan Barber. He has been the topic of a recent Netflix series on the future of food. He has a trendy restaurant in Greenwich Village in New York, but also one on the outskirts of New York surrounded by a farm. So one of the days he was on his way to work and he was walking through the farm and he realised that he spoke to his farm manager who was composting kale at the time. The kale was being composted because the night before they'd had a massive hailstorm and it looked absolutely destroyed. Dan tasted the kale, realised that the quality had not been compromised in any way, and served it on his menu that evening for dinner, calling it Hail Kale. As a result, he decided that he needed to do something more. So he contacted all of those people who supply the restaurant, whether they be cheesemongers, bagel producers, farmers, and asked what food waste was in their systems. When he got that information all back, he decided he was going to do something about it. And for 3 weeks, in March 2015, he reinvented his very trendy Greenwich Village restaurant as Wasted. And for 3 full weeks, all he served on the menu was food that would otherwise have been wasted. An example, for example, the dumpster dive salad. So this was a salad made up of the cuts of fresh food that came from a Baldor, a company that supplied them. But it was made with the water of chickpeas mixed with lemon. And it is now made onto the menu full-time in the Blue Hill restaurant. Also, dog food meatloaf. So his butcher realised that he was selling all of the offal for dog food, when actually, if you knew how to do it properly and cook it properly and experiment with it, you could serve a wonderful meal of a high quality. But my next example is just to highlight how one person's activities within the chain can inspire others. And Baldor was one of the suppliers to the Blue Hill restaurant. Baldor is one of the biggest importers and distributors of fresh food on the east coast of the States. And they got the call from Blue Hill restaurant to say, what waste is in your system? They have a fresh cuts facility that processes 40 to 50 types of fruit and vegetable every day. Everything from mango chunks to celery sticks to onion balls. And they looked at their system and realised that inevitably, because of the amount that they were processing, there was waste. But it wasn't waste, it was food, and it was absolutely perfectly edible. So they engaged in this process of repurposing food. They branded all the food that they repurposed as sparks, or scraps spelt backwards. And one of the most important, or one of the most exciting products, some of which I have in my luggage if anybody is brave enough to try it, is this dried vegetable blend. So they worked with 15 chefs to combine 15 different vegetables with herbs and spices. And they're hoping to sell this on supermarket shelves as a nutritious kick to add to your salad, or as something you can spread over fish or chicken as a nutritious crust. I've tasted it, and it's actually very good. So please don't get me wrong, ladies and gentlemen. I'm not saying that any of these developments were easy. And there was always barriers to developing new things and to addressing serious problems. Time, money, innovation, inspiration, consumers, and particularly from farmers, supermarkets. But these are all issues that we share with other parts of the chain, and that is one of my conclusions. So just to conclude, this is an opportunity. If we increase our knowledge and we understand that this issue is rising up the political scale, we can make the most of food that would otherwise be wasted and try to innovate. If we don't take this opportunity now, others will force us to do it in a different way. Cooperation is absolutely vital. Cooperation between farmers so they can share the costs of things like storage, infrastructure for further processing, refrigeration, for example. So important. But also cooperation within the chain, because we all have different knowledge sets and we all have different areas of expertise. And if we share that knowledge, we can get the better solutions. But my final conclusion is that this issue is not going away. It is going to remain a priority. Food waste is a double whammy for the environment. You use finite resources such as fuel, land, and water to produce food. If that food is wasted, you not only waste the food, but you squander the finite resources that are used to create it. The other reason that I personally feel that this is not an issue that is going away is because of Brexit. We're in the process of formulating our own national farming policy. And this issue has been in the press, it is in policymakers' minds, and more importantly, it is in the minds of the public. And I therefore think politicians will react to it. So we need to make sure that we're on the front foot and are being proactive in shaping that policy. So I just wanted to say thank you to a few people. Thank you to the NFU for giving me the time and supporting my project. To Nuffield, and especially Mike, for his patience with my Nuffield experience. To my family at home in Rush, County Dublin, who honestly I couldn't have done without. But mostly to my husband, John. We've had a roller coaster couple of years, and I honestly wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for his support and his enthusiasm for my Nuffield experience. And ladies and gentlemen, if you'll forgive me with the final thought, I've had a wonderful couple of years, and I love the topic that I chose to study. I think it's interesting and it's important. But my project is not about food waste. It is about an underlying sentiment that I think everybody in this room will agree with, and that is the importance of food. Thank you.